increasingly fragmentary at this point in the narrative. 147, but appears to describe her difficult passage through marshland to reach the temple, while a fisherman instructs her on which route is best to take. 147. Ultimately, Inanna reaches him, who is shocked by her arrogance, but nevertheless concedes that she has succeeded and that the temple is now her domain. 147. The text ends with a hymn expounding Inanna's greatness. 147. This myth may represent an eclipse in the authority of the priests of Ninurta and a transfer of power to the priests of Inanna. 147. Akkadian. Ancient Mesopotamian terracotta reliefs showing Gilgamesh slaying the bull of heaven, which Anu gives to his daughter Ishtar in Tablet 4 of the Epic of Gilgamesh after Gilgamesh spurns her amorous advances. 214. Epic of Gilgamesh. In a scene from the Akkadian Epic of Gilgamesh, written in the late 2nd millennium BC, Anu's daughter Ishtar, the East Semite equivalent to Inanna, attempts to seduce the hero Gilgamesh. 215. When Gilgamesh spurns her advances. 215. Ishtar angrily goes to heaven and tells Anu that Gilgamesh has insulted her. 215. Anu asks Shea why she is complaining to him instead of confronting Gilgamesh herself. 215. Ishtar demands that Anu give her the bull of heaven. 215, and swears that if he does not give it to her, she will break down the gates of the underworld and raise the dead to eat living. 215. Anu gives Ishtar the bull of heaven, and Ishtar sends it to attack Gilgamesh and his friend Enkidu. 216. A scene from the Ugaritic epic of Akut in which the warrior goddess Anat confronts the head god El to demand permission to kill the eponymous hero after being rebuked by him when she asked for his bow has been compared to this section of the Epic of Gilgamesh. 217. Adapa myth. In the myth of Adapa, which is first attested during the Kassite period, Anu notices that the south wind does not blow towards the land for 7 days. 218. He asks his Sakal Ilabrat the reason. 218. Ilabrat replies that is because Adapa, the priest of Ea, the East Semitic equivalent of Enki, in Eridu, has broken the south wind swing. 218. Anu demands that Adapa be summoned before him. 218. But, before Adapa sets out, he warns him not to eat any of the food or drink any of the water the gods offer him, because the food and water are poisoned. 219. Adapa arrives before Anu and tells him that the reason he broke the south wind swing was because he had been fishing for Ea and the south wind had caused a storm, which had sunk his boat. 220. Anu's doorkeepers do music and Ninja Shida speak out in favor of Adapa. 220. This placates Anu's fury and he orders that, instead of the food and water of death, Adapa should be given the food and water of immortality as a reward. 220. Adapa, however, follows Ea's advice and refuses the meal. 220. The history of Adapa was beloved by scribes, who saw him as the founder of their trade. 221. And a vast plethora of copies and variations of the myth have been found across Mesopotamia, spanning the entire course of Mesopotamian history. 222. The story of Adapa's appearance before Anu has been compared to the later Jewish story of Adam and Eve, recorded in the book of Genesis. 223. In the same way that Anu forces Adapa to return to earth after he refuses to eat the food of immortality, Yahweh in the biblical story drives Adam out of the Garden of Eden to prevent him from eating the fruit from the tree of life. 224. Similarly, Adapa was seen as the prototype for all priests winking sad smiley. 224. Whereas Adam in the book of Genesis is presented as prototype of all mankind. 224, Eruandium. In the epic poem Eruandium, which was written in Akkadian in the 8th century BC, Anu gives Era, the god of destruction, the Sabetu, which are described as personified weapons. 10. Anu instructs Zarathustra to massacre humans when they become overpopulated and start making too much noise. Tablet I38ff. 10. Hurrian. One of the myths belonging to the so-called Kumarbi cycle features Anu among the deities involved. 122. While known chiefly from a Hittite translation, the myth belongs to a Hurrian cultural milieu and is largely set in locations in Syria and Mesopotamia, rather than Anatolia. 225. It states that in the distant past, the king in heaven was Alalu, and Anu acted as his cupbearer, but does not explain the origin of either deity. 226. After 9 years, Anu revolted against his superior, dethroned him and made him flee to fume the world. 227. However, after another 9 years, his own cupbearer, Kumarbi, the scion of Alalu, attacked him to seize kingship for himself. 227. Anu attempted to flee to heaven, but Kumarbi bites of Anu's genitals and swallowed them. 6. As a consequence of swallowing Anu's genitals, Kumarbi becomes impregnated with Anu's son Teshar, Tarana in the Hittite translation, and 2 other deities, Tashmishu and the river Tigris. 228. Anu taunts him about this. 228. Teshar is subsequently born from Kumarbi's split skull in a manner compared by Beckmann to the birth of Athena in Greek mythology. 229. And while the restaffed narrative is poorly preserved, it is known that he evades Kumarbi's attempts at destroying him. 230. Wilfred G. Lambert proposed that a hitherto unknown Mesopotamian myth about a confrontation between Alala and Anu existed and inspired the Hurro-Hittite tradition regarding their conflict. 231. Later relevance. The mutilation of Uranus by Saturn, c. 1560, by Giorgio Vasari and Cristofano Gerardi. The title uses the Latin names for Uranus and Kronos, respectively. A reference to a genealogy of deities similar to Enma Eli and by extension to Anu, is known from the writings of Eudemus of Rhodes, a student of Aristotle, whose work is only preserved as quotations given by Damascius, a Neoplatonist writer who lived in the 6th century CE of the barbarians Babylonian, seem to pass over insolence the one first principle and allow for 2, Thoth and Apis. They make Apis the husband of Thoth, whom they call mother of the gods. Of these was born a single child, Mimis, which is, I under from them another genera. Third one arose from the Silanos, Imend, Ilalos, and Aphdemage. 104. It is not known what source Eudemus relied on, though Berosus can be ruled out with certainty, as it is implausible that the former lived long enough to read the works of the latter. 104. Furthermore, the inclusion of Enlil, Ilalos, as an equal of Ea, Aos, and Anu, Anos, indicates that while similar to the Enma Eli, the source used was not identical to it. 232. A further difference in Eudemus' account is the fact that the origin of Mummu, Mimis, is clear, while the Babylonian work in mention does not directly explain it. 232. It has been argued series of divine coups described in the Kumarbi myth later became the basis for the Greek creation story described in the long poem Theogony, written by the Pythian poet Hesiod in the 7th century BC. 6. However, Gary Beckmann points out that it is not impossible that the two myths simply developed from similar motifs present in the ancient Mediterranean shared cultural milieu. And Hesiod did not necessarily directly depend on the Kumarbi tradition. 225. In Hesiod's poem, The primal sky god Ouranos is overthrown and castrated by his son Kronos in much the same manner that Anu is overthrown and castrated by Kumarbi in the Hurrian story. 233. 6. Kronos is then, in turn overthrown by his own son Zeus. 6. In one Orphic myth, Kronos bites off Ouranos' genitals in exactly the same manner that Kumarbi does to Anu. 6. Nonetheless, Robert Mondi notes that Ouranos never held mythological significance to the Greeks comparable with Anu's significance to the Mesopotamians. 234. Instead, Mondi calls Ouranos a pale reflection of Anu. 138. Noting that apart from the castration myth, he has very little significance as a cosmic personality at all and is not associated with kinship in any systematic way. 138. In late antiquity, writers such as Philo of Byblos attempted to impose the dynastic succession framework of Hittite and Hesiodic stories onto Canaanite mythology. 235. But these efforts are forced and contradict what most Canaanites seem to have actually believed. 235. Most Canaanites seem to have regarded El and Baal as ruling concurrently. 236. Notes. Ian now means sanctuary, house plus heaven, and plus genitive. 152. References.